Regrettably, the election did not take place. It didn't hold. There were mere allocation of figures to contestants. A young man who came second withdrew from the race 2 weeks before the election. But for the affirmation of figures, it was allocated reasonable figures. The interesting thing to tell you is that I was not even able to vote in my own primary election. I called the national chairman to inform him that I couldn't vote. And the summary of it was that by 7 p.m., he sent the electoral team from my local government to my house to cast my vote. And I told him my house is not designated as one of the polling units. So I won't be able to cast a vote in my own house. I respectively sent the committee away because my house is not a polling unit center. What we have decided to do is simple. We will not take law into our hands, but we fight to Supreme Court by legal instruments. What we saw in Ondo, April 20, was a mega fraud of the democratic processes, which should not be allowed to stay, not because of my own personal interests, but for the interests of Nigerians yet unborn, and including those who are also living. Now, what I have done this afternoon in a short form is to compile the evidence and let you have copies so that you know what to write. Now, we are going to INEC to ask for a satisfied true copy of the original of all that was filed in respect of Ondo election. We took it graphically, local government by local government, word by word. In a table compiled by us, we saw that 157 of the words, INEC said, no election, not me, no election. Election did not take place in our presence. We simply lifted those INEC words and then put in the table for everyone to see. We have 203 words in Ondo State. If INEC can say there's no election in 80% of those words, then obviously you know that the doctrine of substantial compliance is in breach. If I come with my display of word to word, I have done this in a table where you see I put 203 words and I put INEC comments in each of those words. And that's why I told you in 159 of those 203, nothing happened. Now, if you look at the last letter attached here, the letter was stated by Ododo on the day of the election. Look at the date on that letter, 28th of April. Ododo wrote to INEC. In the first paragraph that on the line there, you can see it. He said, please defer to our earlier letter dated 5th April, wherein we requested for a change in the state collation center. So on that day of election, 28th, where we're supposed to assemble now and collate the result of the election, Ododo changed the venue. Now, in this letter he sent to INEC, signed by him, you can see it, Ododo and Omo Agege. Now, in this letter, they did not indicate. So now, in this letter that Ododo signed, you will see that he did not indicate to INEC where the new center for collation is. He only told INEC, today is the election, I have changed the collation center. Where is the new collation center? Nobody knows. And we as aspirants, I particularly, are supposed to know where the collation center is in the state so that my collation officer can go there and witness what is happening. So you have seen very clearly that election did not take place in all these LGs because Supreme Court said the fact that the election didn't take place in one local government does not mean that it didn't take place, it can vitiate the election in the entire state. So what we are now asking Supreme Court is that the fact that election did not take place in 15 out of 18 local governments, then what happened? So that's exactly what we have done. And the fact that election did not take place in 80% of the wards in the state, 159 out of 203, then what happened here? And we have now have approached the court as a law-abiding citizen, and the matter was filed within 14 days. Electoral law says you must file within 14 days after the complaint purported election. So I filed at the Federal High Court, and then from tomorrow we have served APC head office, and they have acknowledged receipts. So they have 7 days to respond to our complaint, and then thereafter we then start the fireworks. Supreme Court went to say in one of the cases that even if INEC did not monitor it, as long as there is no equal opportunity in a direct primary, we will void it. So it's a settled judicial precedent that we have in numbers in recent time. So it's not that you say you sought form for 50 million. We pay 100 million for validation of candidates, and you say it's an internal affairs. If you know you have preference for one candidate, why don't you come to say? That's why I say the April 20 was a mega fraud. Our prayer is that conduct a new primary or delist APC from participating in 2024 November election in Ondo. And of course, in several cases, you are aware of Samfara, Taraba, Jigawa. There are cases where Supreme Court have delisted a political party for participating in the May election if you cannot conduct your own primary very well.